The furious banging on my back gate made my heart jump into my throat. Catherine's voice sliced through the warm summer air like nails on a chalkboard cutting right through the happy squeals of my kids splashing in the water. Mike Reynolds, you open this gate right now, or I swear I'll call the authorities and have that eyesore removed today. The summer sun beat down mercilessly on our suburban backyard, turning the air thick with the scent of freshly mowed grass, chlorine from the water, and the faint metallic tang of the steel trough that had become our family's new lifeline. I sighed deeply, my fists clenching at my sides as sweat trickled down my back. How did it come to this? Just yesterday everything felt peaceful until the HOA ban hit us like a ton of bricks, and now here we were in the middle of what felt like an all-out war. I wiped my forehead with the back of my hand and glanced at my wife Sarah, who stood beside me, her hand resting gently on my arm, giving me that quiet strength I needed. Our two kids, Tommy and Lily, were laughing, splashing water everywhere, their little faces glowing with pure joy, oblivious to the storm brewing at the gate. "Daddy, the water feels so cold and nice," Lily called out, her voice full of wonder. God, it broke my heart seeing them this happy after weeks of disappointment. I took a deep breath, the kind that fills your lungs with that mix of frustration and determination, and walked toward the gate. It all started a month ago at the annual HOA meeting in the community clubhouse. The room was packed with neighbors fanning themselves under the fluorescent lights, the air heavy with the smell of cheap coffee and tension. Catherine, our self-appointed HOA president, stood at the front, her perfectly styled blonde bob knot moving an inch, her pearl necklace gleaming like armor. She had that smile, the one that looked sweet but hid daggers. "For the aesthetic integrity of our neighborhood," she announced in her clipped tone, "we are banning all inflatable pools effective immediately. They are unsightly, cheap, and lower property values. No exceptions." The room erupted in murmurs, some agreeing, some groaning. My stomach dropped. Tommy and Lily had been begging for a pool all summer, their little voices asking every hot day, "When can we swim, Daddy?" We couldn't afford a permanent one, not with the mortgage and everything else. Inflatable seemed perfect, easy, affordable. But Catherine had other plans. She cited some obscure bylaw about visual pollution, and before I knew it, the vote passed with her and her little clique of supporters pushing it through. I drove home that night, the car silent except for the hum of the AC, my mind racing. Sarah squeezed my hand. "We'll figure something out, honey." But the kids' faces when I told them were devastating. Tommy kicked the ground. "But Dad, all my friends have pools." Lily just sighed, that little kid sigh that hits you right in the chest. I stayed up late that night scrolling on my laptop, the glow lighting up our dark living room, the smell of Sarah's leftover pasta still lingering. That's when I found it, a massive galvanized steel stock tank, 8 feet long, 2 feet deep, marketed as a rustic garden trough for livestock or decor. It was sturdy, heavy-duty, and according to every forum I checked, not technically a pool if labeled properly as decorative. The next day I ordered it online, my fingers hovering over the buy button, heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. This could work, I whispered to myself. Delivery came 2 weeks later, the truck rumbling down our quiet street, drawing curious glances from neighbors. The guys unloaded the huge steel trough right into the backyard, the metal clanging loudly against the grass. It gleamed under the sun, heavy and industrial but perfect. I painted a small sign myself in bold letters, "Rustic Decor," and bolted it to the side. Sarah helped me level it, fill it with the hose, the water rushing in with a satisfying whoosh, cool and inviting. The kids screamed with delight when we finally let them in, their tiny bodies splashing, sending droplets flying everywhere, the sound like music after all the silence. For a few blissful days it was heaven. The backyard smelled of wet earth and summer, the water reflecting the blue sky. Neighbors waved, some even asked about it. But then Catherine drove by in her pristine white SUV, slowing down, her eyes narrowing like a hawk spotting prey. I knew trouble was coming. And now here it was, her fists still pounding the gate, her face flushed red with that entitled rage. "This is not decor, Mike, it's a pool and you know it," she spat, her voice rising. "Take it down or face the consequences." I unlocked the gate, stepping out to face her, my voice steady but my pulse racing. It's labeled rustic decor, Catherine, just like the bylaws allow for yard features. Check the rules again. She laughed bitterly, that short, sharp sound that made my skin crawl. You think you're clever, don't you? This is going to cost you. The air between us crackled with tension, the distant laughter of my kids a stark contrast. What had I started? Sun on my neck and the weight of her glare, I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't backing down. Not for my family. Not today. By the next morning, the HOA email hit my inbox like a slap. Catherine had called an emergency meeting for that evening, citing an urgent violation on my property. My phone buzzed nonstop with texts from neighbors, some supportive, some siding with her rules are rules crowd. I paced the kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee doing little to calm my nerves as Sarah packed lunches for the kids. You got this, she said, kissing my cheek, her touch grounding me. The kids were already back in the trough, their giggles floating through the open window, the water sloshing gently with each splash. It was a small victory, but one I clung to. The meeting hall was stuffy again, the same fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the air thick with the scent of old carpet and anticipation. Catherine presided like a queen, her gavel slamming down dramatically. We cannot allow this kind of blatant disregard, she declared, her eyes locking on me. Inflatable pools were banned for a reason, and this steel monstrosity is no different. It's a safety hazard, an eyesore, and it sets a dangerous precedent. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly. It's not a pool, Catherine. It's rustic decor. The bylaws say nothing about steel troughs, only inflatables. Read them. I held up printed copies, the paper crinkling in my hands. She snatched one, scanning it, her face twisting in disbelief. This is semantics, Mike. The spirit of the rule, she started, but I cut her off. The letter of the rule matters. My kids deserve a place to cool off this summer just like everyone else's. A few heads nodded, some neighbors shifting uncomfortably. One older guy, Mr. Hargrove, cleared his throat. She's got a point about aesthetics, but the man's not wrong on the wording. Catherine's cheeks burned redder. She called for a vote on a new amendment to close the loophole, but it was tabled for now. Fines were threatened, though, $200 a day until removal. I drove home that night, the streetlights blurring past, my grip tight on the wheel. Sarah waited up, her sigh of relief when I walked in palpable. How bad? She asked. Bad enough, but we fight. The next days blurred into a storm of paperwork, notices taped to our door, official letters in the mail. Catherine patrolled our street in her SUV, slowing every time she passed our house, her glare burning through the windows. I caught her once snapping photos, the click of her phone camera echoing faintly. Frustration gnawed at me, but so did a spark of defiance. Twist came when I was out mowing and noticed something in her own yard. Her back patio had those cheap plastic lounge chairs stacked high, visible from the alley, and what looked like an unauthorized fountain bubbling away. Hypocrite, I thought, but kept it to myself for now. The kids kept playing, their laughter a shield against the growing tension. Tommy asked one evening while floating on his back, "Daddy, is the mean lady gonna take our pool away?" His innocent question hit like a punch. No, buddy, not if I can help it, I replied, ruffling his wet hair, the water cool on my fingers. Neighbors started taking sides, some dropping by with supportive words, others avoiding eye contact. One evening, a small group gathered at our fence, whispering about Catherine's heavy-handed ways. The air smelled of barbecue from nearby grills, the summer evening soft yet charged. I felt the weight of it all, the emotional whiplash between family joy and this neighborhood drama. But every time I saw my kids splashing, the steel trough gleaming under the sun, labeled so innocently as rustic decor, I knew it was worth it. Catherine wasn't winning this one. Not yet. Up, and I could feel the storm building. The fines started arriving, stacked on the kitchen counter like unwanted bills, the official HOA letterhead mocking me in black and white. 3 days, $300 already. I stared at them, the paper feeling heavy in my hands, the ink blurring slightly as anger rose hot in my chest. Sarah sighed beside me, her hand on my shoulder. We'll pay if we have to, but this isn't right. The backyard was our sanctuary, still the trough full and inviting the kids cannonballing in with splashes that sent water arcing high, the sun warming their skin. But the peace was fragile now, every laugh tinged with the fear of losing it. I decided to document everything: photos, videos, timestamps, the works. My laptop screen glowed late into the night, the click of keys mixing with the distant hum of crickets outside. Forums online were full of similar stories, people sharing loopholes and small victories, the virtual support a lifeline. Then came the inspection.
Catherine. We're ready for the inspection.
Catherine showed up with two board members' clipboards in hand, her heels clicking authoritatively on our driveway. We're here to assess the violation, she announced, her tone dripping superiority. I let them in the backyard, air thick with the scent of sunscreen and wet metal. She circled the trough, her nose wrinkling. Clearly a pool. One board member hesitated, but the label says decor. Mike has a point. Catherine shot him a look that could freeze fire. Arguments flew back and forth, her voice rising, her gestures sharp. I stood my ground, explaining the purchase, the bylaws, the intent. This isn't about rules, it's about control, I said, finally, the words hanging in the air. She laughed bitterly. Control? This neighborhood has standards, Mike. You're undermining them. As they left, I overheard her muttering to the others about escalating to the city. My pulse quickened, but a small twist emerged later that week when I ran into Mr. Hargrove at the mailbox. Between us, he whispered, glancing around, Catherine's got her own setup. That fountain of hers isn't permitted either. Saw the permits myself. My eyebrows shot up. Hypocrisy exposed, even if just to me. I didn't confront yet, but it fueled my resolve. Family nights became more precious. We'd sit by the trough after dark, the water reflecting stars, the kids wrapped in towels, their voices sleepy and content. Sarah would lean into me, this is what matters. Yet the stress showed in little ways, my sighs deeper, her worried glances. The neighborhood buzzed with gossip, some doors closing, others opening. A petition started circulating quietly against the ban, some neighbors tired of Catherine's reign. Emotions swung wildly, one moment empowered, the next exhausted. Then another notice arrived, threatening legal action if not removed within 10 days. I read it aloud in the kitchen, the words tasting bitter. What now? Sarah asked, her voice steady but eyes tired. I didn't know exactly, but quitting wasn't an option. The trough stood tall in the backyard, a symbol now not just of fun but of fighting back. The sun rose the next day, bright and unrelenting, the water calling the kids in. I watched them play, the splashes loud and carefree, and felt that fire build. Catherine's pressure was mounting, but so was our unity. This battle was far from over, and the karma I sensed coming felt closer than ever. The sabotage attempt blindsided me. I woke to the sound of running water, not the playful kind, but something wrong, the backyard hose. Gushing full blast, flooding the area around the trough. I bolted outside barefoot, the grass wet and cold under my feet, heart hammering. The label on the trough had been pried partially off, the metal scratched. Catherine. It had to be. No proof, but the timing after her latest threat screamed her. I fixed it quickly, the kids still asleep, the dawn light soft on the steel. Frustration boiled over into a shout that echoed in the empty yard. This ends now. I called an emergency neighborhood chat group meeting at the park, the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh cut lawns. About 20 people showed up, some curious, some angry. I laid it all out, the ban, the loophole, the fines, the possible sabotage. Murmurs grew. She's gone too far, one mom said, her voice laced with exhaustion. Catherine arrived late, her face a mask of innocence, but her eyes darted nervously. This is ridiculous, she huffed. I'm just enforcing rules. But the group pushed back, questions flying. What about your fountain, Catherine? I asked, finally, the words calm but pointed. Gasps rippled. She sputtered, denying it, but the damage was done. Whispers turned to open debate, the park bench creaking under shifting weights. My phone buzzed with texts of support, the emotional tide turning. Sarah stood by me, her hand in mine, the warmth grounding. Back home, the kids sensed the shift, their splashes more energetic, the water gleaming like a trophy. But Catherine wasn't done. Claiming safety violations, the official letter arriving the next day smelling of fresh ink and bureaucracy. Inspectors came poking around, clipboards ready. I explained, showed documents, the trough's specs. They left undecided, but the pressure built. A minor twist hit when online research revealed Catherine's past in another neighborhood similar. Complaints of overreach and even a lawsuit settled quietly. I shared it anonymously in the group, the info spreading like wildfire. Frustration peaked that evening as I sat by the trough alone, the water still, the stars above mocking the chaos below. A deep sigh escaped me, the kind that carries the weight of weeks. Why does one person get to ruin it for everyone? I muttered. But seeing Tommy and Lily's drawings of the trough taped to the fridge, their crayon smiles gave me strength. The community fractured visibly, now sides clear, Catherine's supporters dwindling. Arguments at mailboxes, heated words over fences. I felt the emotional whiplash daily, high on solidarity, low on the legal threats. Yet the trough remained filled, the label secure, a quiet rebellion. Catherine's mask cracked in public, her voice shrill during a follow-up call. You'll regret this, Mike. Regret? Not standing sooner. The stage was set for the final act, the air thick with anticipation, the summer heat mirroring the tension. Justice wasn't just coming, it was knocking loud. The climax hit on a scorching Saturday afternoon, the kind where the air shimmers and tempers flare easy. Catherine marched up our driveway, flanked by 2 city officials and her last loyal board members, her face set in that triumphant smirk. This is it, Mike, she called out, removal order in hand. The trough goes today. My heart raced, but I stood tall in the backyard, the steel catching the sun like armor. Sarah rallied the kids inside, but they peeked from the window, eyes wide. Neighbors poured out, drawn by the commotion, fences lined with faces, the air buzzing with shouts and murmurs, the scent of hot asphalt and cut grass heavy. You can't do this, I said, voice steady, holding up the bylaws packet now thick with notes. It's decor. And while we're at it, let's talk about your violations, Catherine. That fountain, the chairs, the unpermitted shed in your back. I have photos, timestamps, everything. The crowd gasped, turning to her. Her face drained of color, the smirk vanishing. Officials hesitated, flipping through papers. Ma'am, is this true? One asked. She stammered excuses, but the evidence I presented, screenshots, forum posts, even her old neighborhood records, hit hard. Whispers turned to demands. Step down, Catherine. The confrontation exploded, her voice rising to a screech. This is harassment. But the tide had turned fully. Mr. Hargrove stepped forward. You've bullied this neighborhood long enough. Time for change. Applause broke out, some neighbors cheering, the kids even sneaking back out to splash defiantly, the water flying in celebration. Officials reviewed everything on site, the trough staying put for now. Catherine's karma crashed down hard, the board voting her out on the spot, her position stripped, fines redirected her way. She stood there alone, the fight draining from her eyes, the once powerful Karen reduced to muttering as she walked away defeated. That evening the backyard filled with neighbors, the trough now a gathering point, laughter echoing. The smell of grilled burgers and lemonade mixing with the cool water scent. Tommy and Lily swam freely, their joy uncontainable. Sarah hugged me tight. You did it.
You did it.
I sighed, the deepest, most satisfied sigh, the tension finally releasing like a weight lifted. The steel trough gleamed under string lights, no longer just decor but a symbol of standing up. In the end, it wasn't just about a pool. It was about not letting one entitled voice silence a whole community. We learned that rules should serve people, not the other way around, and that fighting fair with facts and heart wins. Catherine moved quieter, now her influence gone, a reminder that karma has a way of circling back, often with a splash. As the summer stretched on, our neighborhood felt lighter, bonds stronger. My kids taught me the real value, simple joys defended fiercely. If there's one message, it is this: stand your ground with love and truth. The bullies don't always win, and sometimes the smallest loophole leads to the biggest justice. Our rustic decor stayed, and so did our spirit, unbreakable.